Monday morning, 8:13 a.m. The kind of morning where the coffee tastes burnt, the emails are already angry, and your boss is somehow even angrier. I was halfway through fixing a server outage when Richard, the kind of manager who thinks leadership means hovering over your shoulder, stormed into my office. No knock. No warning. Just that look. Hand me your laptop. Not the company laptop. My laptop. The one I bought. The one I paid for. The one currently sitting closed beside my keyboard. For a second, I thought he was joking. He wasn't. I need to review some files, he said, extending his hand like I was supposed to just surrender it. Now, if you've ever worked in corporate America, you know there's a line. A very clear line. Company property? Sure. Personal property? Absolutely not. But Richard had never met a boundary he didn't want to bulldoze. I kept my voice calm. That's my personal machine. He smiled. The kind of smile that usually comes right before HR gets involved. Anything work-related on it belongs to the company. That was the first red flag. The second? 3 people had quietly gathered outside my office, pretending not to listen. And the third? Richard already knew exactly what he was looking for. See, 2 weeks earlier, I'd stumbled across something buried deep inside our internal financial systems. Something that didn't add up. Missing funds. Phantom vendors. Transfers routed through shell companies. I hadn't told anyone. At least, I thought I hadn't. Richard stepped closer. Last chance. I looked at my laptop. Then at him. Then, very carefully, I slid it across the desk. Because what Richard didn't know was that opening one particular folder would trigger an automatic lockdown sequence I designed myself. And once it started, there was no stopping it. He grabbed the laptop, smirking like he'd already won. He had no idea he'd just made the biggest mistake of his career. Richard didn't wait. He stormed out of my office with my laptop tucked under his arm like he'd just won a trophy. Half the floor watched. The other half pretended not to. I followed. Not because I was worried. Because I wanted the best seat in the house. He dropped the laptop onto the conference room table. 3 department heads were already there. So was someone from legal. That got my attention. Let's clear this up, Richard said, flipping open the screen. The login page appeared. Password. I folded my arms. It's my personal computer. His smile vanished. Not anymore. He tried using an IT admin override, a tool meant for company-owned devices. It failed, but it also triggered something. The screen flickered black. Then a single folder appeared. No name. No label. Just one encrypted directory sitting alone in the center. Richard leaned forward immediately. What is that? Private. That word practically challenged him. He clicked. A keypad appeared, along with a warning. Unauthorized access detected. The room went silent. Richard typed in a code. Denied. Another. Denied. A third. The screen flashed red. Then a countdown appeared. Security protocol initiated, 5 o'clock. Legal finally spoke. Richard, maybe stop. He ignored her. Of course he did. At 4:59, the laptop made a soft chime. At 4:58, the conference room lights dimmed. At 4:57, every single monitor on our floor powered on at once. People froze. Richard slowly turned toward me. And that's when the first file appeared on the big presentation screen. The room went dead silent. Every monitor in the office, conference rooms, cubicles, even the lobby display, lit up with the same message. Secure archive unlocked. Richard's face lost all color. Then the files started loading. Not family photos. Financial records. Transfer logs. Internal emails. A complete forensic trail, neatly organized into folders with names that were incredibly specific. Offshore transfers. Vendor payouts. Executive authorizations. And then the one that made Richard physically step backward. Richard _Holloway approvals. The conference room froze. One department head whispered, "What the hell?" Richard lunged for the keyboard, but the mouse locked him out. A red banner flashed. Remote distribution in progress. My phone buzzed. Then another. And another. 27 emails had just been sent automatically. Recipients? Our CFO. Corporate compliance. External auditors. And, for a little theater, the entire board of directors. Attached were the exact files now playing on every screen. Richard stared at me. You set this up. I built it for unauthorized access. Legal stood so fast her chair nearly tipped over. Richard, did you force access to a personal device? He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Then the lobby monitors changed. A spreadsheet appeared, highlighting payments routed through 3 shell vendors over 18 months. Total amount, $4.8 million. The room erupted. Phones came out. People started recording. Richard slammed the power button. Bad move. The laptop responded instantly. Tampering detected. Live backup initiated. Then, over the office speakers, a calm voice announced. Evidence package successfully transmitted. Richard looked like he might pass out. But the worst part? That wasn't even the file I'd been protecting. Richard looked at me like I'd detonated a grenade in the conference room. Honestly, pretty close. He stepped forward. Legal stepped between us. That was new. You're finished, Richard hissed. I almost laughed. Because his phone started ringing. Caller ID, corporate headquarters. He declined it. It rang again. Then again. Across the table, the CFO's assistant burst in, completely out of breath. The board is on an emergency call. Right now. Richard didn't move. The giant screen switched again. This time, it wasn't spreadsheets. It was email. Hundreds of them. One thread expanded automatically. There it was. Richard personally approving vendor payments to companies that technically existed, but only on paper. The timestamps matched the missing funds perfectly. One department head slowly sat down. Another muttered, "Oh my God." Richard found his voice. This is fabricated. Bold move. Especially when the next file opened. Digital signatures. Bank confirmations. Audit logs. And one inconvenient PDF containing Richard's passport scan, used to open an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. Legal didn't even hide her expression. Then my phone buzzed again. External forensic mirror complete. Richard stared. Mirror. 3 copies, I said. Different jurisdictions. His shoulders dropped. He wasn't dealing with an employee. He was dealing with evidence. Then the conference room door opened. 2 corporate investigators walked in, badges visible, expressions unreadable. Nobody had invited them, which meant somebody much higher up had. One looked directly at Richard. Step away from the computer. Richard didn't argue. That told everyone exactly how serious this had become. But as he backed away, his eyes locked onto mine. Then he said the one thing that changed everything. You have no idea who else is involved. The room somehow got even quieter. You have no idea who else is involved. Richard didn't sound angry anymore. He sounded scared. That was a very different problem. One of the investigators turned toward him. Explain. Richard glanced around the room, weighing his options. Fight. Run. Lie. He chose all 3. This goes higher than me, he said. Much higher. Nobody breathed. Then he looked straight at the CFO, who had entered seconds earlier. And the color drained from the man's face. That was all anyone needed to see. The investigators noticed it too. One pivoted instantly. Sir, we're going to need you to stay. The CFO forced a laugh. A terrible one. Surely this is some kind of misunderstanding. It wasn't. The main display refreshed again. A new folder opened automatically. Executive Communications. Inside were private messages, encrypted chats, and call logs linking Richard, the CFO, and 2 board members to the shell vendors. Dates. Amounts. Approvals. Every breadcrumb. Legal sat down very, very slowly. Richard wasn't the architect. He was middle management with better tailoring. The real players were sitting several floors above us. Then the CFO made his move. He reached for the laptop. One investigator grabbed his wrist before he got close. Do not touch that. The CFO's calm executive mask cracked. You don't understand the consequences. That line always means the consequences are about to become public. Then my phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. Leave the building. Right now? I looked up. Across the glass hallway, a man in a dark suit was standing perfectly still, watching the conference room. I had never seen him before. But Richard had. Because the second Richard spotted him, he went pale. Then, for the first time all morning, Richard tried to help me. Don't answer your phone. A second later, it rang. The phone kept ringing. Once. Twice. Then a third time, like whoever was calling was sure I'd eventually answer. The man in the dark suit across the glass hallway didn't move. Just watched. Like he already knew how this ended. Richard leaned closer, voice low. If you answer that, you're stepping into something you can't walk back from. That got everyone's attention. The investigators shifted instantly. Who was calling? One asked. Nobody answered. At that exact moment, every screen in the conference room flickered again. But this time, no folder opened. Just one line. Incoming override attempt detected. The CFO stepped back. No, that shouldn't be possible. Richard muttered. They found it. I looked at my phone. Unknown number. Still ringing. I tapped. Silence. Then a voice came through. Not human. Flat. Controlled. Disconnect the device immediately. The room froze. Even the investigators. You are in possession of restricted financial intelligence. You are interfering with executive containment protocol. Richard whispered. Containment protocol. The laptop screen changed. My encrypted vault, designed to lock under pressure, was doing something I didn't intend. It was broadcasting. Files duplicated in real time. Outgoing streams. Live mirrors. Everything Richard tried to hide was escaping. The CFO lunged for the power cable. Too late. A sharp tone echoed. Self-containment failure. Initiating counter-distribution. One investigator swore. Who built this system? Richard looked at me. And something shifted. This wasn't exposure anymore. It was escalation. The man in the suit finally moved. Pressed something in his ear. Then walked toward the conference doors. Slow. Certain. Richard said. They're not here to stop it. Pause. They're here to take it. The door handle began to turn. And the laptop flashed. Final seal break in 009. 009. The laptop countdown didn't feel like software anymore. It felt like a trigger. The door handle turned slowly, deliberately, as if whatever was outside already knew no one inside could stop it. Richard stepped back. Then again. For the first time, he didn't look like a manager, just a man deciding whether to run or vanish. The investigators raised their hands. Nobody moved. But no one listened. 006. The laptop flickered. Encryption peeled away like it had been waiting. Then, everything stopped. No sound. No movement. Even my phone cut mid-ring. 003. A man in a suit entered. No badge. No introduction. Just presence. The room reacted like gravity shifted. Richard whispered, "That's not compliance." The man ignored him, staring at the laptop. 002. "Hand it over," he said. "Not a request, a retrieval." I didn't move. Because the vault I built opened something I didn't code. Origin node. 001. Access transfer initiated. Too late. The system replicated beyond the room, beyond control. Midnight. 0. Black screen. Then every device died at once. Monitors, phones, security systems. Silence. The man finally spoke. This was never about exposure. He looked at me. It was about ownership. Richard turned slowly. You didn't build a vault. Pause. You built a key. Then the screen blinked once more. Node link established. You are now connected. The laptop died. But something in the system stayed alive. And it had just learned my name.